Okay, Ben, we're heading into the Vancouver Sun office here. Tell us why you're here today.
Well, we've been invited to debate Marvin Hunt, who is the acting mayor of Surrey. He's a Surrey city councillor and the former chair of the Waste Management Committee for the Regional District of Metro Vancouver. And I've been one of the most outspoken opponents of the Waste Management Plan. He's been one of the most outspoken supporters of it. And actually, we called for him to be replaced, I guess, about a year ago, and actually got it. He was replaced. And since then, Marvin's barely said a word to me. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. I guess we'll find out.
So what are the big issues around waste incineration right now?
Well, I mean, it really just comes down to what the best way to deal with our garbage is. And our argument has always been that we should be doing more recycling and composting as much as possible, getting as close as possible to recycling and composting everything. Burning garbage is just simply not a solution. It means more toxins in the atmosphere, it means more greenhouse gases, and it means pulling more non-renewable resources out of the ground so you can make new products instead of making products out of the recyclable materials that are in our waste stream. So I mean, it's really a no-brainer if you're worried about sustainability that you can't just continue to burn all of our garbage or bury all of our garbage. We need to be composting and recycling, and that's basically going to be my main point today. Is that this is simply unsustainable, just at a fundamental level.
Okay.
So I guess we'll see.
We better head up.
Yeah. Agree with the Metro Vancouver Waste Management Plan in that it calls for higher and higher levels of waste diversion. Really, where we go in different directions is I'd like to see us continue to set those goals further into the future.
Well, we are setting those goals into the future, right? So there's 70-80%. That's what they are aiming for. So in the meantime, you need a place to put all this waste. So why is that a problem even at a stopgap measure? Let's say for the next 15, 20 years or 30 years, we might have to do that.
Well, what the province has told Metro Vancouver is that they can't even consider building an incinerator until they get to 70%. So really the issue is once you get past 70%, what do you do then? And the argument I've been making is that it's better for the environment, better for the economy, just better overall if we continue to set targets further into the future. This proposal to build an incinerator or a new contract for a landfill would go to 2030 and beyond, yet we stop our targets at 2020. And basically what I'm saying is why aren't we setting those targets for 2025 or 2030 and talking about how we get to 90% or higher?
But Ben, let me stop you right there and ask you, look, I mean, all the studies that we have seen, some of the comprehensive studies that have been done, suggest that the air quality is not going to deteriorate or get worse compared to the Health Canada guidelines, right? So clearly the air is going to be fine. So secondly, it's going to be potentially could be an economic generator, i.e. they can use it for energy production. So on the environment front and the economic front, it makes complete sense. Why are you against it?
Well, I guess I would fundamentally disagree with both of those assessments. I mean, first of all, on the economic front, just to start there, the Vancouver Board of Trade has actually asked the Metro Vancouver to reconsider this because of the cost, primarily. It's $500 million to build it. Paul Leviton from KPMG, which is Metrovan's own auditor, has actually said that the costs are being underestimated and the revenues are being overestimated. So, I mean, I would just start by pushing back and saying I think that's inaccurate, and especially at these kind of lean times in our economy, to spend $500 million is a small amount of money. Even if it was a privately funded project, though, I would still have concerns about it. Both because of the ownership model, but also, as an environmentalist, our physics tells us you can't make pollution just magically disappear. It has to go somewhere. If anybody who wants to get elected in the Fraser Valley sure as heck is opposed to waste incineration, and to tell folks that it's an acceptable level of pollution for anybody who's living anywhere around the Fraser Valley, who can tell you they've already got the worst air quality anywhere in the region and deals with all the pollution across the region. It's not about comparing this source of pollution with that one. It's saying more smokestacks is the wrong way to go. We need less of it, not more.
But then let's get practical here.
Sure.
What do you do in the meantime while we're working towards more diversion? And then the question becomes, what do you do in the meantime when you can't get into cascade and all of that, so there are problems there, right? So what are we going to do in the meantime with all of this waste?
Well, I think it's a false dichotomy to say that this is about landfill versus incineration, because quite frankly, all you're really doing is you're converting garbage into ash if you're burning. In Japan, they do a lot of incineration. They're running out of landfill space because of all the ash. this ash still needs to go somewhere. And when you burn all these toxic materials like water bottles and things with fire retardants and you name it, all that stuff gets blended together. You've now got a highly toxic material that has to be dealt with as hazardous waste. And the only place that can deal with that in the region right now is Cache Creek. So there's no shutting down Cache Creek in this assessment. Anybody who's concerned about the conditions around Cache Creek is now going from garbage to hazardous waste. And you're not ultimately closing down landfills. In fact, you're creating a system that makes sure that you need them indefinitely because you're feeding it more and more ash. For the rest
I
of the
understand
time.
that. Now, so where is the proposal at now in your mind? I mean, is it going to go anywhere?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I think at the political level, this is a non-starter. The city of Vancouver is wholeheartedly opposed to mass burn incineration. There's a number of other individual councillors, about a third of the vote, I would say, is just no mass burn, full stop. And then the rest of the councillors are split between private, public, in-region, out-of-region. There was a 5-hour-long circus of a meeting that happened where this plan went forward, and frankly, the only reason why the plan was even put forward to the point where they could even consider incineration is because Diane Watts flipped her vote at the 11th hour. Well, actually, it was about the 5th hour, if you want to be literal about it. And she did that largely just to get out of the meeting, to say, let's just let all options come up to the table. And I think what we're probably going to see in more practical terms is some of these niche applications, like the bioenergy projects that are being proposed by the City of Vancouver and others. I personally would like to see us focus first and foremost on the composting and recycling. I mean, half of what's in our landfill right now is compostable or recyclable using existing technology.
Which we're already doing that.
Well, we are, but not nearly enough. I'd say the lion's share of the time and energy, staff and resources, the money, is going into this proposal to build a giant facility that will kind of lock us into a certain way of doing things for decades and will be a big price to us, I think, both environmentally and economically. So in that sense, I think it's actually a big step in the wrong direction. And really, I think if we're sincere about reaching those targets for waste reduction, there's a lot more that needs to be done around composting and recycling. And quite frankly, I think to say that the stuff that is currently compostable or recyclable, to say that it's okay for us to subsidize companies continuing to make stuff that isn't recyclable or compostable, is just not the right direction to go. I'd like to see our leaders, really demand of folks in industry that they not be producing things that end up either being landfilled or incinerated. Basically, it's a subsidy coming from us to companies making stupid products. And we have some of the best provincial bylaws or provincial rules actually around extended producer responsibility. Those rules